Okay guys, and we're back with another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest. I'm Seth from the Lonely Stoner podcast, and this is episode 42 of my side quest. Now, this episode is going to be a bit different than the recent episodes, and it's going to be mostly focusing on an article that I was reading around how Sadiq Khan plans to fix London's growth problem. Now, London's economic growth has been a focal point of recent discussions with a number of strategies being proposed to address its challenges. Now, the major one is Sadiq Khan's growth plan, which is an ambitious plan aiming to boost London's economy by £107 billion by 2035. Now, these politicians like to throw around these big numbers and like to aim really high, and at the end of the day, if Sadiq Khan hits this or doesn't hit this, it doesn't make any difference to him. At the end of the day, these guys are paid politicians. They don't have any real skin in the game. Now, they'll spin a story, spin a web, and tell you that they've lived in London, they love London, all this stuff, as you can imagine, and as we all hear on the TV. But this guy, he's probably pulled this number out of, you know where he's pulled this number out of, and it sounds like a big number, sounds like a good number, and just put it out there. But the plan focuses on increasing productivity by 2% annually, targeting areas such as housing, transport, and skills development. There's been proposed infrastructure projects, including the Docklands Light Railway to Thames Head and the Bakerloo line to Lewisham. Additionally, there's a push for greater fiscal autonomy, allowing London to retain more tax revenues for local investment. Now, in the UK, whenever we see planned infrastructure projects, just know they're either not going to happen or they're going to be significantly over budget, right? The UK is the past 20, 30, 40 years, the UK has been awful at building infrastructure. And that's because there's so much tax, there's so many regulations, which in some ways are good because they are there to protect, workers, etc. You can compare it to somewhere like Dubai, where they're great at building infrastructure, but it's done by slave labour. Whereas the UK are awful at building it because you actually have to pay people to do these things. And you have to pay them very well in this country. Because we've seen a sort of economic shift where these manual jobs are now paying very well because there aren't enough people that are trained to do them, and they're hard to do. So that's being financially rewarded, but at a cost of, meaning infrastructure projects are hard to come by, hard to be delivered on time and on budget. So even if these infrastructure projects were to happen, they're probably going to be delayed by years and then significantly over budget. But that's his plan. I think in theory, infrastructure projects are a good way to increase productivity and are a good way to generate money for an economy. But in the UK, historically, it's not been as an effective way of producing those returns as it has been in other countries. Another point that Sadiq Khan was suggesting was an immediate economic stimulus. Business leaders emphasised the need for quick actions to invigorate the economy. Suggestions include reinstating VAT shopping for international visitors to boost retail and eliminating stamp duty on share transactions to enhance capital markets. These measures aim to make London more attractive to both investors and tourists. Now, I suppose these sorts of things, particularly the VAT spending for international visitors, I guess somewhat could, in theory, boost tourism, but overall, people aren't coming to London not because of VAT. VAT is not the reason people aren't coming to London. People aren't coming to London because it's expensive. For what it is as well, you come to London, you're not coming to Dubai. You're not safe, but you're gonna pay an arm and a leg, but you're not gonna be safe. The weather's gonna be bad. Everything's expensive. To be fair, if you're a tourist and you can get VAT free shopping, that knocks off 20% of your bill. So it is kind of worth it to them in that sense. But what's the point? You go to a shop, buy some clothes, walk around the corner, you get robbed. So they can look at that, and stamps reducing or eliminating stamp duty on share transactions. Ultimately, the people that this really affects are the big traders, because at the end of the day, the stamp duty and transaction fees for small retail investors, they're not really making much of a difference. But it's really the guys who are trading with, multiple thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions at a time, where the stamp duty is really sort of affecting them. Now, if what they're proposing is a tax break for the ultra rich once again, that's only going to further the wealth inequality in this country. Not sure if I can go for that one. Also, they want to address the high cost of living. Obviously, this has been an issue in the UK for years and years and years now, particularly since our lockdowns. So the past 5 years, it's gone up radically, but it was a problem even before that. The cost of living, particularly housing, poses a significant barrier to attracting and retaining talent. Of course, and this is the thing, this is the sort of housing crisis that the UK, particularly in London, is experiencing. If you were born in London, you can't afford to live in London anymore due to the high cost of living, which means they're not be able to retain talent, which means I live in London, I was born in London, I'll never be able to afford to live in London, I have to move to, say, Birmingham. Now, the people who are from Birmingham can't afford to live in Birmingham because I've raised the prices, because there's less housing stock available, because I'm a quote-unquote rich Londoner that can't afford to live in London, now going to Birmingham. Now, people in Birmingham can't afford to buy a house, so they move to, Coventry. Now, people from Coventry can't afford to buy a house, then they move, and it just goes further and further and further out, and it all starts in London because that's the capital of the country. And like they're saying, since lockdown, essentially, central London's been hollowed out because no one can afford to live there, and everyone's working from home. And working from home is a great thing. Working from home is a great thing, and don't let these jobs tell you it's not, because at the end of the day, no job requires you for 36. No office job requires you for 36 hours a week, right? Now, they can pay me for 36 hours a week, but I will never work 36 hours a week. You'll get a few hours of good, focused work from me. The rest of the time, I'll be trying to relax, right? But that's a whole other issue. That's a whole other issue. But yeah, I suppose the plan there would be to try and create more housing in London and support new developments. But how are they going to do that? London's only a small area. I mean, you can knock down these houses and then build flats, which is what they should be doing, to be honest. They should be building flats like they're coming out of, again, you know where. You should be building flats damn near everywhere, because it's the only way you're even going to put a dent into the housing crisis. And you cap the house prices, and you make these flats, you cap house prices. That's the only way you can really, and you don't encourage buy-to-let mortgages. This is the only way you can do it, really, to solve the housing crisis. The next point is transport infrastructure enhancements. So upgrading and expanding London's transport network is crucial for economic growth. Plans involve extending existing lines and creating new services such as the West London Orbital Overground. A multi-year funding deal for Transport of London is advocated to ensure these projects are completed efficiently. I think the transport infrastructure in London is one of the best things about London, to be fair. It's expensive, it's, busy, overly so. So I guess adding additional capacity could be a good thing, to be fair. But still, it's not really solving the issue. In my opinion, really solving the issue would be solving the housing crisis and allowing more talented Londoners to remain in London would really solve the issue. But then we're going to address the business environment and investment aspect. So to attract multinational firms, London must address its chicken and egg low growth dilemma, creating a more business-friendly environment through regulatory reforms and incentives is essential. This includes supporting sectors like financial and professional services, which are pivotal to the city's economy. Now, I do agree with this. I do agree that London and the UK as a whole has definitely become less attractive to multinational firms. In the same breath, I'm very hesitant to enforce regulatory reform that puts more power in the hands of big business, in my opinion. I am hesitant to do that. I think But it is a balancing act. Like I said, it's a chicken and egg sort of dilemma here. It is a balancing act where ultimately, if you give employees all the power in the world, there will be no businesses to support, to give them jobs, right? Because the thing with capitalism is you have to, someone always has to get ripped off. There always has to be a loser. Always has to be a loser. So if you make the businesses the loser, the businesses have more flexibility than the workers, right? So if you make the businesses the losers, they will just leave London and leave the UK. But if you make the workers the losers, the workers can't leave. The workers need the jobs. The workers need the money, right? That's what politicians understand, big businesses understand. Few people understand that situation, but I do. That's why I'm saying it. But the UK believes they have a sort of responsibility to, encourage people to be in work and have jobs and make money and all this. It's all a bunch of, I'm not even going to say, it's all a bunch of hoopla, if you will. It's a system that, like I said, in capitalism, if you feel like you're being ripped off, this is why. Because for capitalism to work, you have to make £100 and get paid 70, say. Or pay even less, say paid like 40. Right? You're like, well, I just made 100, why am I only getting paid 40? Because it's capitalism. As long as, the West is a capitalist society, you will never earn what you deserve. Now, and to be fair, I do kind of hate that wording around deserve, because in this life, no one deserves anything. No one deserves anything. If you get it, if you work for it, if you earn it, great. But no one's got a God-given right to deserve anything. But, hey, I'm going on a tangent, but like I said, I'm a touch hesitant to see the UK, the London politicians, to provide regulatory reforms and incentives to attract multinational firms, because ultimately these reforms are at the cost of the worker. So if you're giving these companies a tax break, that means less tax is being given, which means less money for the population. The population, right? Also, I want to address remote work challenges. Now, the rise of home working has led to concerns about the hollowing out of central London. Mayor Sadiq urges businesses to consider the long-term impacts of reducing office space, emphasising the importance of vibrant business districts for the city's economic and social fabric. Now, this is exactly what I was talking about, where they really want to focus on style over substance. Now, you can do your job working from home brilliantly. Not brilliantly, but the exact same. But because they want London to look nicer, they want you to travel an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours every day just to make London look nicer. You have to dress up, put on your suit, get on the train at a ridiculous time, sit on a packed train, get diseases from everyone, just because they want London to look nicer. You can do your job from home. We've got no concerns about that. We know you can do it because you did it for 2 years. The same way the UK solved homelessness for 2 years. Don't pretend that they're not able to solve these problems, right? And I suppose that begs the entire sort of question to this London growth problem. Do not believe for a second they cannot solve these problems. They do not want to solve these problems. Once these problems become profitable enough to solve, believe me, they will solve them. Believe me, they will solve them. But until then, we're in the situation we're in, and hey, the UK is the UK, man. The UK is the UK, and London is London. So unless something crazy is gonna happen, we're stuck here. And until maybe I move out. Maybe I move out of London. I probably will, because I'll probably have to just to simply afford it. I'm seeing in my area 350 grand for a 1-bedroom flat. You're insane, bro. You're insane. And this isn't even one of the most expensive parts of London. There are much more expensive parts of London than I live in, than where I live, is what I'm saying. But yeah, that's another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest in the bag, episode 42, I believe. So yeah, that's it from me, and I'm out. Peace.